The timeline that you're walking on is not fully solid yet. So it's going to feel like it is wobbly, which you'll translate in feeling, I am wobbly, I am not solid, almost as if you get a sense that you're walking around in a dream and that everything you see isn't real. It's happening out there to somebody else. There's a sense of surrealness or unrealness right now. It's as if the timeline only becomes solid, only becomes real when you stand on it. Get the visual? You're walking into a nothingness that only becomes solid as you take the steps. This is all about reclaiming the timeline. And we've just survived an attempted hijacking of our timeline, and it looks kind of crazy. So we're going to talk all about reclaiming the timeline. Right now, there are two factions who are trying to control the timeline, but they're pretty powerful, both sides. And then what happens is they kind of cancel each other out. So it creates an instability for those navigating the timeline. And the instability is, wait, who's in charge? Whose drum beat do I dance to? Whose rhythm do I reply to, respond to? Because humanity is so used to operating in that way. They're so used to the false matrix making reality real for them and then them responding to it. Humanity is not used to creating. We, the light workers, have to lead the way right now. Get the visual with me. The timeline is invisible. It's not solid. It's essentially been cancelled out by these two very powerful energies on the planet, the power of dark, the power of light. And they're not at war with each other. I really want to make that clear. They're just doing different things. The one is seeking dominance through separation. The other is seeking peace and unity through wholeness. So they've got two very, very different trajectories. The one elevates into a 5D consciousness. The other one makes a U-turn back into the false matrix. I'm not going to go too deep into the discussion about that. Go back to the last 3 videos where I talk in depth a little bit more about the attempted hijacking of the timeline. So that's really what we're surviving right now, but it's now up to the light workers to make the timeline solid. When the timeline feels unsolid, it feels unstable, feels like we're wobbly, feels like we're uncertain, feels like we're hovering, feels like we're in a daze, feels like we're in a dream. Not everyone's going to feel that way, but a lot of people are going to feel like they're watching what's going on right now as if they're in that dreamlike state. Therefore, light workers, it's incredibly important that you offer what you came here to bring to the timeline, which is your stability, your solidity. I've got 6 really important tips to give you as we make the timeline solid. I want you to listen to all 6. Personally, I feel like point number 6 is the most important. Into point number 6, I feel like I've crammed pretty much everything that I can say to you that's of value and importance to what you're doing right now. But the first point that we need to know as we navigate this wobbly timeline is that there is a difference, you guys, between you and the timeline. There's a difference between you and the timeline, and we're not used to that. We're used to the external reality. That's what the timeline is. So when I say timeline, if you battle to understand what that is, then replace it with the word reality. We're used to external reality, the timeline, telling us who we are, whether we're safe or not, whether we're okay or not. It's been giving us the signals. It's been giving us the cues for how to live, for who we are. We interpret ourselves as a reflection of the timeline. In the divine matrix, and this is what we're busy establishing, the higher timeline that we're in the process of trying to establish is to revert to the original organic template. That is God's organic creation, wherein the timeline is a reflection of the person walking upon it. That's how it's supposed to be. That's what we're in the process of reestablishing. Therefore, we have to have a sense of stability within ourselves. The timeline is wobbly, not you. The timeline is wavering, not you. The timeline is in that in-between dream state, not you. So this means for the first time, you have to redefine the sense of self. And that leads me to number 2, which is to find stability within you. Okay, so now if the timeline doesn't define me, I must get a sense of self that allows me a sense of stability in this world. This means to plug in to you. This means to connect to you deeper, more powerfully, more profoundly than ever before. We tend not to do this because we're afraid of what we feel. We tend not to do this because we're afraid of what it feels like when we're directionless, when nothing is in control. We don't know that it's meant to be us. We didn't get that signaling. We didn't get that class. That's what we're getting right now, is a crash course, essentially, in being a powerful light worker. It is, at the very beginning point, it is something that begins with a sense of stability in self. There it is. This is something that I'm demonstrating for you energetically. So on one hand, you've got my words explaining this. On the other, what I'm showing to you is this is what it looks like, feels like when a human being in front of you is powerfully stabilized in their own field. As I share this with you, I become a ripple of it for you, and you do exactly the same for others. This is a contagious, beautiful experience that we all share with each other, almost through osmosis. That's why it's imperative for each person to play the role that they came here to play right now. So this part, point number 2, requires presence, requires stillness, which will have you facing yourself. It will. And that's why so much of my work has centered around get into authenticity. There has been so much preparation, so many opportunities for preparation. You guys, you're not alone. If you need me to support you, I am here to do exactly that. I have a sacred healing space called the Plasma Light Tribe. Now is the time for you to join. This is where you learn the skills and gain the energetic experience that I'm talking about. Let's move to point number 3. Turn your outrage into your power. There will be outrage. And we're just beginning to see some of the malevolent interference. We're seeing hurricanes going on, you guys. This is but the beginning of interference that's aimed at giving humanity a sense of their smallness, because that's exactly what outrage does. Outrage affirms, I'm not in control. I'm not powerful. Injustice is happening. There's nothing I can do about it. I'm small and weak. All I can do is scream about it and fight against what's happening. So outrage is not powerful, because outrage is, I can't control this, but you can. So it's almost a tendency to demand somebody else must fix this. And the moment you're demanding somebody else has got to do something about this, that implies because I can't. Because I'm not the powerful one here. An empowered person won't go into outrage. An empowered person is going to go into power. And point number 6 is going to talk more about that, right? So do stay tuned for that one. Point number 4, I really like this one. Point number 4 acknowledges, listen, in order for me to be the stability that the timeline requires right now, I have to heal. And I have to heal rapid fire. We don't have 10 years to do this. We don't even have 10 days to do this. In some cases, we don't even have 10 hours to do this. Do it now. Step into your most healed state that you can step into. If you need help, go to my website. There's any number of guided meditations. They're going to prime you to get into this Zen zone. As you do, you're going to come into, any guided meditation is going to bring you here, or any really powerful guided meditation is going to bring you here. And that is into this place where you can actually enjoy the dreamlike state. Because remember what I said in the beginning, timeline is not solid. So there is definitely a dreamlike essence to where we are right now. But instead of feeling powerless, looking at the world going, oh, there's nothing I can do about this, I actually want you to interact in that dreamlike state, because that dreamlike state, I have spoken about this in a previous video, which I will link to this one. That dreamlike state is where your soul is coming into the body at an even deeper level. It was always, and it is right now, part of the plan for where we're headed. And that is to allow for a massive quantum level healing to take place in the human body. So as much as you may feel this dreamlike state is just weird, we can take advantage of it and step into the timelessness that it affords us, step into the healing that it inadvertently allows us. And I say inadvertently because the powers of the false matrix, when they're not really a power, they're a force, there's a difference there. But anyway, the force that was the false matrix, they very much rely on their scare tactics. The light workers are so ingenious. They find any opportunity to empower themselves, any opportunity to bring light in. And the dreamlike state is exactly that. The dreamlike state enables you to be in a deep healing. It can put you into a comatose, disconnected state. Yes, that's possible. But if you choose to, you can direct yourself into a heightened state of consciousness. Because of the lack of solidity, stability, you can experience a deeper connection to the energetic self, to the ethereal self. Bring that into form, bring that into solidity, and you are healing. So that means basically you're coming in stronger. If you take advantage of that dreamlike state, you at the soul level are going to come in stronger than ever before. Do the healing work now, you guys. I can't say it enough times. This is your time to bring in all of that higher frequency that we couldn't reach before. We now can. We have to bring it into the body very, very loudly. This is us learning to become solid and stable from the inside. And when that happens, we walk on that timeline, and every step that we walk makes the timeline more and more solid, but we will solidify the timeline into an empowered version of the timeline based on the empowered individuals walking upon the timeline. I hope you're starting to get a sense of your power in all of this. Point number 5, you guys, other people are going to suffer, and when you see it, don't crumble. Because what we're used to doing in the presence of suffering can go into outrage, we can go into sorrow, we can join them in a form of suffering. It's very important not to apologize when other people are suffering for the joy, for the healing, for the lightness that you may feel. In fact, it now becomes your duty, your responsibility, your healing power to be the answer and the remedy to the suffering, not by joining the suffering, but by stepping into a lightness that is lighter than you've ever been in before. Don't apologize. Be in a powerful place of claiming the light that you are. Light is joy. Light is love. You're allowed to be in love whilst observing other people in suffering. It doesn't mean I don't care about somebody else's suffering when I hold love and peace and healing and ease in my body. It means I'm embodying those things on behalf of those who can't right now. So there's never a better time for you than now to step into the lightness that you came here to hold without apology. Do you see how very powerfully you're being asked to be? Here's point number 6. Point number 6 is about your power. Point number 6 is we're used to being small, you guys. We have been so programmed to feel meek and weak and inadequate and futile and helpless and hopeless and stupid and incapable. All of these things we describe as normal. We don't even name them anymore because they've just become almost blended into the backdrop of our lives and accepted as fact. Well, of course I'm just a human being who doesn't really have an impact in the world. That's where we've come from. The truth of who we are needs to be seen, to be claimed right now so that you can walk those solid steps on the timeline. And the truth of who you are is that you are a cosmic creator being. The truth of who you are is that you are powerful, you always were powerful, and there are going to be people who don't see your power, can't see it. Don't wait for them. Don't wait for them to hear your voice, hear your message, see your beauty, see your power, see your divinity, so that you can be powerful. You must. This is yours. This is yours and yours alone. Even if no one else gets what you're saying, hears your voice, sees your power, you must be in it. You're making the timeline solid and stable by you stepping into a solidity of power. This is because you're affirming your power, because for the first time you are enabling yourself to exude the power that you are, not to want somebody to see it, but to just exude it, even if no one sees it, even if no one acknowledges it. So this is about you being a warrior. This is about you being a spiritual warrior, that maverick that every light worker is at some level. I love what we're doing right now. We don't have a game plan. We don't have a rule book. We don't have a memo that we're distributing to all light workers going, look, guys, this is how we do it. We're trusting the light that we are to be the ripple that it is, to awaken every other light worker to their potential, so that collectively we become the ripple that ripples through the timeline and shows humanity an alternative to the fear-based timeline, to the weakness of humanity, because that's a timeline in itself where humanity is weakened, enslaved, subservient. This is us stepping into an extreme version of love, an extreme version of peace, an extreme version of light. This is not a time to resist against anything, because that's not what power does. That's what force does. Remember this. Force will always push against reality and say, this isn't real. This isn't happening. I oppose this. Whereas power, which is different to force, power is going to observe from a state of neutrality. Please understand the difference between neutrality and apathy. It's like day and night. Apathy is, I don't care. That's what apathy is. Neutrality is, I observe both. I observe what's happening through your ability to neutrally observe what is taking place right now. Right. What is taking place? The timeline is undergoing an attempted hijacking. That's what's taking place right now. Watch what happens if I step into outrage. I go, oh my God, this is horrible. This is terrible. I'm actually stepping into a defensiveness, because there's actually a fear-based component in there. The more fear we're in, the deeper our outrage. We almost try to use anger or outrage to overcompensate for the fear that we're in. That's what opposition and resistance does. However, let me demonstrate what happens when I step into sacred neutrality. Sacred neutrality is my ability to accept, oh yeah, oh right, I see what's happening. I gravitate to that which is my highest truth. It's so easy. I don't have to struggle to do this. It's my nature. I don't have to conjure something outside of me. I only have to be the highest version of me that I've ever been before, because that is my nature. The outrage, opposition, etc., that is not my nature. Therefore, it's very difficult to stay rooted in that place. What is easy to stay rooted in is my power, my peace, my love, my serenity, my divinity. Those become a higher frequency that dissolve. That's the key word. Dissolve the lower realities. Dissolve the powerlessness, the weakness, the smallness that humanity could be inclined to step into right now. I become a beacon, even a sanctuary, you could say, when I'm in sacred neutrality, because it is that sacred neutrality that affords the old timeline the opportunity to dissolve. Isn't that an interesting way of saying it? It affords the old timeline, the malevolent timeline, an opportunity to dissolve, because actually, you guys, darkness is tired, it's exhausted, it's depleted. That's why so many people keep saying, I'm so tired, because we've been holding the programming of the old false matrix beyond its sell-by date, beyond the point that it was ever meant to extend to. So now's the time to replenish and refuel and do it differently. Nobody gave us a guidebook and a rule book that said, hey, light workers, this is how it's done. because we knew if we had the guidebook, we would be predictable. Number one, we cannot be predictable right now. We must be the quantum anomaly right now. That's absolutely essential. But do not underplay the role that you have in making the timeline stable right now. You bring stability to the timeline by bringing stability and solidity to you. You were once defined by the external world. You're in the process of learning how to define the external world through your own presence in it, through your ability to connect to your own power. So, from my heart, all the way into yours, so much love, everyone. Speak to you really soon.